talk about supplements?
I mean, I get asked about supplements every single day. How about you?
Yeah, I even take supplements. Do you take supplements?
I take quite a few supplements. Yeah. So we'll talk about supplements.
I think it's a big topic these days. We all need to take some type of supplements to fill gaps. So it's important to understand, why are we taking them? Where should we be getting them? How long should we take them? So let's get into it.
All right, let's do it. I'm John Agbelusi, your strength coach, certified fitness professional with over 25 years of experience helping women over 40.
And I'm Dr. Sara Whatley, a family medicine physician with a holistic approach to integrative care.
Yeah, so, some of the big questions I get asked about supplements are, obviously brands. People ask me about brands. People ask me about dosing, specific supplements. And I think that's a good thing. Earlier on in my career, I would not get the same amount of questions about supplements I get now, which says that, from an overall standpoint, women, just the population in general, is getting more educated about supplements. And there is more research now than there ever has been before about the effectiveness of supplements and how effective they are. And I think that's really where the questions are coming from, is people here, especially like the demographic that we work with, women over 40. They're hearing a lot about supplements. Sometimes the information is contradictory, and they, I think, really look to people like you and me to help kind of clear it out, like really help chop through the weeds of like, hey, what is the really raw information that they need to know? So what are some of the questions that you get asked?
All the questions.
Yeah.
Well, to your point, these days there's so much information available, and that can be for anything. How should I work out? How should I eat? What supplements I should take? And I think it's great to have access, but how does that apply to the individual? And so those are the questions that I get asked a lot. I saw this thing on TikTok where I bought this thing, and it opens up the conversation for two things. One, what are we looking for? What symptom are you having, or what are you experiencing, so we can understand that better? Is there something underlying going on that we need to evaluate with, like, diagnostics? Do you have a true nutrient deficiency or something else metabolically going on that I want to understand better? Or is it just about optimizing health? And it can become overwhelming, because just like I don't want my patients to be on a handful of prescription medications unless it's truly, truly necessary, do we need to have a handful of supplements? Well, I used to say no. But really, ultimately, this day and age, with the way that our food production and soil and nutrient density of our food and our culture have changed, we really do need to have a supplement strategy to fill in those gaps to optimize our health.
Yeah, and you talk about optimizing health. I think one of the challenges of why people and women over 40 are really looking for professional advice is because, when you look at the supplement industry, there's so many promises, right, made by the supplement. Oh, the supplement's going to do this, it's going to cure that. It almost like seems too good to be true for certain supplements. So I think that creates a lot more confusion than help for our demographic that we work with. Is it makes it even more confusing. Like, hey, how can this one supplement do so many good things for me? So there's a lot of over promises, I think, by supplement companies.
Sure, and we don't want it to be the snake oil industry,
Yeah.
right? So that's where there's that balance of working with someone who's really educated in that field, so you can weed that out and understand there are supplements that are great. Is that applicable for you and your health? In general, supplements are readily available with or without, like, doctor recommendations, because in theory they can be safe. But just like anything, healthy things in too high of doses or in the wrong combination could be detrimental. So it's really important to understand the why. If someone comes, is this good for me? Yes or no? Well, that's not just a simple question. We need to better understand that. And I wouldn't say, I wish there was a magic one-size-fits-all supplement that could just fix everything, but generally not. But it does speak to why people are seeking it, because there are people who have been, for example, vitamin D deficient. Okay, so this is a simple one, very common. And when the vitamin D is so low, you can experience depression, anxiety, sleep disturbances, joint pain, some pretty significant symptoms. And so when that's identified and replaced adequately, it can feel like magic.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's awesome. And I love when I can have the magic for the patients. But then that just tells you, okay, maybe that person who's promoting that supplement had a really significant deficiency and it was great for them. But let's just figure out what's best for each individual.
Yeah, and you bring in a good point because supplements can really do that exactly. Supplement deficiencies, right? Or supplement something that we're not necessarily getting in our diet. And so let's talk about the why. Why, specifically for women over 40, why are supplements vital? Or I should say, are they vital?
Well, at this point, I would definitely say yes. And again, a lot of it has to do with what's available to us. And if it was just my job to eat all day long, which that would be nice.
With the perfect foods that you needed.
The perfect foods and the perfect balance.
And prepare them all yourselves.
Absolutely. I grew it in my house. It's organic.
100%.
Then perhaps we wouldn't have to supplement. But ultimately, again, we do. Our nutrient density of food has changed. So I hear a lot. You probably hear this from your clients, like, oh, my grandma ate this, or my grandparents used to have that. Our food has changed. And, we can verify that scientifically. So we do have to supplement on some level. And for women over 40 in particular, there are a lot of building blocks, some basic vitamins that help us build hormones. So as our hormones are shifting and we don't have those building blocks, then we're really going to feel those symptoms. For example, B complex. There are many B vitamins that are used as building blocks for hormones for women. And that's one of the most common deficiencies in our food currently. So B vitamins is imperative, in my opinion, for hormones. And then also we've talked before about magnesium, in particular magnesium glycinate for calming and for sleep. But it's also very tied into our hormone balance as well. And then two others, one being vitamin D, which if we're getting adequate sun, we're getting adequate vitamin D. What's adequate sun?
Well,
10 to 20 minutes a day of as much exposed skin as possible between the hours of 10 and 2.
I was going to say, well, it's really hard, if not impossible, to get the recommended dosage of sun just because of the way we live.
Absolutely. If you can go outside naked in whatever circumstance for 20 minutes a day minimum, then, by all means, hey, why not? But if not, vitamin D is imperative, not only as a vitamin, it's called a vitamin, but it's almost like a hormone, especially for perimenopausal and menopausal women. And there's normal lab levels and there's optimal for certain supplements and vitamins as well.
And I think that's where, again, it can be a little bit challenging for women, and why I think they really need to talk to like a medical professional specifically. This is a really important vitamin because, there is like the normal range. And then there's the optimal range for where you're at in your life. And, that could be such a huge difference in numbers. So a lot of women will be like, hey, I'm not deficient because I'm in the normal range, but they are still deficient.
Sure. What's normal to your doctor? So the range on the blood work for vitamin D might vary per lab, but generally it's the range of 30 to 100, which is a pretty big range. So if you're at 31, your doctor might say, oh, you're in the normal range. I like to see my perimenopausal and menopausal women 50 to 60 for that hormone regulation opportunity that vitamin D has in our body. And then the other supplement that is very beneficial for everyone these days, but particularly perimenopausal women, is omegas.
Okay.
So omegas, some people may not know that those are actually anti-inflammatory. So we need inflammation in our body. We're always breaking down tissue and rebuilding it. And so some inflammation to a certain extent is helpful and necessary. But we also want to build in anti-inflammatory components. And a lot of that comes from our food. But again, it's very hard to get the level of omegas in our diet that we need. And so as things are shifting in our 40s and beyond, we are going to feel a little bit more inflammation. Some of that is hormonal, some of it can be other vitamins or nutrients, but a lot of it can have to do with not having enough omegas.
Yeah. So a lot of women I work with, and I'm sure you do too, because I really liked how you just brought up like kind of 4 really essential supplements for women, in their 40s and beyond. But a lot of women that I work with, and I'm sure that you work with still, will say like, "Hey, I feel like I eat really well." They feel like, "Hey, I have a good diet. I'm super healthy. I get sun. Um, I eat fish." Um, um, and yet, supplements can still really benefit them, right? Tell us more a little bit about why, even if we're eating, and you touched on it a little bit earlier, and I just kind of want to really hit the point home. Even when we have a healthy diet, why should we still look at supplements as kind of an essential? Because we think of supplements as optional, but what we're really saying is these are essential components of health.
Right. It's what's normal and what's optimal
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
And so it's great if we have a very colorful diet and we're getting really nutrient dense foods. And that's ultimately what we all want to work toward. I would say culturally, again, not just because of the food differences, but because of consistency and how busy we are. Sometimes we just don't have the perfect week. And so that's where supplements can help fill in the gaps. And generally speaking, I do like consistency. So we say, hey, take this every day, because hopefully you will, but maybe we'll miss a few times per week. But that's still enough to fill in the gaps. So even with a really great nutrition plan, again, nutrient deficiencies in our food, and then just being consistent. That way, if we do get a little bit off track, we still have those building blocks so that we'll have that resilience that our body needs, and that storage as well when certain things come along.
Yeah, no, really good. I see both sides of the spectrum. It's funny, and I'm really glad you hit that home, because the goal is good nutrition regardless. Because I see the side where it's like, hey, I eat really healthy. I don't feel like I need to take supplements. I've also seen the other side, which is like, hey, I take supplements, so I don't need to focus on eating really healthy.
Oh, totally. Well, we can't out supplement our diet.
Right.
Which is something I commonly say. I kind of also say we can't outrun our fork.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. That's a good one.
So, meaning we can't out exercise our diet, and we can't out supplement our lifestyle either. So there is a trade-off there. We're not trying to fill in the gaps because of poor foundational choices. We're just saying, hey, in general, I'm talking about someone who wants to feel their best and optimize their health. Then this can be a complement, but it's never a replacement for lifestyle.
Correct. And I think that's a really good point. And I think there's going to be varying levels of needed supplements, right? I always kind of compare the human body to a house, right? Which is like, hey, if you had a 40, 50-year-old house, there's going to be some preventative maintenance that you need to do on a regular basis. And supplements can really help optimize that kind of preventive maintenance, or I should say reduce how much big maintenance that we have to have. So if we're supplementing and we're eating good, then, we're not going to have any big breakdowns in major systems in our body or our home. And now if we have a 40, 50-year-old home and we haven't done any preventative maintenance, there's going to be some drastic improvements that we need to make on both the nutrition and the supplements. So yeah, if we're eating really healthy, we're really doing that preventive maintenance on our diet, or probably supplements that we need are going to be more on the minimal side, right? Because we're optimizing our nutrition. But, if we haven't really been doing that preventive maintenance, we're going to maybe need to be a little bit more aggressive with our supplements and also our nutrition at the same time.
Right, and it's always good to reassess as well. So sometimes we start on certain supplements for a specific reason, and we might have our foundational supplements, like, okay, I'm always going to be on the vitamin D or whatever that is for you and your health. And then sometimes we're in a replacement phase where we are deficient. And then we can reassess and say, do I still need this? Is this complementary? Is this something I need to take a break from and cycle at different times for my health? And what about where your clients are getting their supplements? Does that matter?
It does matter,
Oh,
yeah. And so supplements, just like with food that we're finding is, there's a big difference in how your body responds to the quality of what we're eating. Like, there is a big difference on how my body responds to the specific food that I'm getting, right? Based on where it's sourced from. There's a big difference between, you know, factory sourced meat and organically grown grass fed meat, right? Same supplements are the same. There's going to be a big difference in how they're manufactured, how they're created, how our body responds to them. So we're definitely looking for very specific manufacturing processes when it comes to supplements. How they're sourced. Are they third party tested, to make sure that they have the purity, the potency, and the delivery that we really want, or to optimize the supplement that we're taking, because nobody wants to waste money either, right? We don't want to just take, all the things and then, spending all this money and getting a diminished return because the quality isn't really there. We'd be much better taking less high quality supplements from sources that, are third party tested and are manufactured in the right process. That'll have a much higher effect on our body.
right. We call it expensive urine.
Yeah, that is when you have poor supplements. They
Yes.
just get depleted out of your system without getting the desired result. So we've talked about a few. You've mentioned a few supplements already. Now, not a day, and I feel like we could just have a whole different episode on this, but we should talk about it for today and briefly. But not a day goes by that I don't have a client, a woman over 40, asking me about creatine. So, in fact, it just happened this morning. Should I start taking creatine? And that is the question I get from almost all of our female clients over 40. Tell us your opinion.
Short answer, yes.
Okay.
Long answer. We talked about some other foundational supplements for women, 40 and above. And we talk a lot about muscle mass and strength training, and muscle mass matters, and the health of our muscle cells is going to change as we age. And so one way of really supporting the body and supporting building that muscle is going to be creatine. And I get different questions about it because there are different ways to onboard that, but ultimately the answer is yes, and I think we agree on this, is creatine with a goal of 5 grams a day.
Yeah.
And really the caveats to that would come with when you're starting the creatine. Some women are very worried about weight gain. Mm-hmm. And so I just explain it that when we start the creatine, I recommend just starting a lower dose, like 1 gram a day for a few days. It's really imperative to stay hydrated. Mm-hmm. So if you know you're already great at hydrating, awesome. But if not, this is a good motivator if you're going to start that particular supplement. By starting a lower dose and then gradually building up to the goal, then we avoid some of that bloating or water retention that can happen with creatine. That is true. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times it's just how we're getting it into our body when we're taking it in, and are we hydrating enough? Yeah. But it really helps with the muscle mass, and also there's some cognitive benefits as well.
Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit more about that. But yeah, that's definitely something I'm really trying to help our clients understand is, there is a lot of myths about creatine. One is that it makes you bloated and retain water. And to be fair, creatine, one of its main benefits is actually does pull more water into the muscle cell, right? And that's actually what we want. Creatine is called like an osmotic supplement, or, it really pulls water. Water follows it, right? So water is going to follow creatine into the muscle cell, and that's what we want. That's going to improve our overall health of the cell, because, a lot of our clients, our clients, your patients, as they get into into their 40s, one of the reasons why their muscle tissue goes down and they lose strength and metabolic function is because their muscle cell is shrinking. It's getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and it's actually losing the healthy water inside the cell. So, creatine can really help that process, actually pull more water into the cell. That might, for some women, result in a little bit of increased water weight, right? So they might actually have a little bit more weight on the scale. But it's gonna the benefits are their body's gonna metabolize more fat. They're gonna move better. They're gonna have stronger. They're gonna be stronger. They're gonna have overall more muscle mass. So it's like, okay, the maybe the downside, a little bit of extra water retention, which is actually inside the muscle cell, really helping it. And that might be, hey, my scale's a little bit heavier. I'm a little heavier on the scale. But on the flip side of that, the long-term benefit is like I'm going to have this much healthier body that's going to function in the long term at healthier at a lower weight. So, really, really important to understand that creatine. There's also that feeling of water retention, but it doesn't necessarily have to be bad.
Right. And slow and steady,
Yeah.
right? It's just don't jump into it if you're unsure, and then you can also like monitor the scale. I know there's another muscle supplement that you really like. I like it for another reason too, but which one is that?
Oh, haha. But I call it the sister supplement to creatine. So
Oh,
it's glutamine, right? So glutamine's definitely kind of follows the same lines of creatine as, supplement that does help the volume of the muscle cell, the repair of the muscle cell. Now, if we had to compare creatine to glutamine, there is way more scientific research on creatine, way more white papers, way more evidence based science on creatine. Glutamine is catching up. But there's a couple of reasons. I recommend it primarily for recovery for women over 40 because stress is such a big factor in results and actually a decline in results. And glutamine really does help manage the body's stress response for the reason that you recommend it. So tell us, why do you recommend glutamine?
glutamine is also very helpful for your gut health,
Yeah.
and in particular the lining of our gut. And so we take a lot of things from the outside world into our body through our gut. And so we want the lining of the gut to be very strong, to keep things in that should stay in and out that should stay out. And so L-glutamine can be really helpful for the protective layer of the lining of that gut, or the AKA leaky gut that we hear about. And so it is a complement to a lot of other things, but I like that the sister to
Yeah.
creatine.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think, digestive health is so important, right? And when our body's under stress, glutamine is one of those things that it's like, okay, it kind of lives in the digestive tract, right? And so that's why we supplement. But when we're under stress, your body actually needs more, and the place it's going to pull it from is where it's going to be the most abundant, is in our digestive tract. So, a lot of times stress and, gut issues go hand in hand. And glutamine can be like one of those key supplements that really helps bridge that gap. And again, really helpful with recovery also. Now, going back to creatine just for a second, you did talk about brain health and creatine, right? So a lot of people think creatine is like this muscle supplement to help build muscle, and yes, it does. There's so many benefits to creatine, scientifically backed benefits, but just kind of help us understand a little bit more about brain health and creatine and how those two things are linked.
Sure. So creatine is also very necessary for everyone's brain, but in particular women over 40 who have a higher need for creatine for the cognitive benefits, because our brain cells, like we've talked about, they have receptors for estrogen, but it also uses creatine for the metabolism in the brain. Ultimately is what it comes down to. So if we have this one supplement that can help connect the muscle and the brain together, it would be creatine.
Yeah. Okay, so we've talked about a few supplements, 6 so far, and that's a lot. We don't want to go into every single supplement and what they do on this episode. But what we'll do in this episode is we'll link a list of essential supplements for women over 40 and what they do, why they're important, and how you, as our audience, can actually get those supplements and make sure that they're the quality that you need. We'll link all that in the description below. Now, we've learned a lot about supplements. They are a supplement, right, to a healthy lifestyle. But for the people that we work with, they are not just optional, right? I think from this conversation, we've really learned that they're essential. There's essential supplements that women over 40 need to be taking. And we want to make sure that, the people that we work with know that, and also the broader audience at whole, really understands that, hey, as I get into my 40s and beyond, like supplements can really help me maximize my health and my fitness and hormones and everything. So let's talk about if we had to just really boil it down, so you talked about a few, okay? If we just had to boil it down to the one or two essential supplements, if we're working with someone that's like, hey, I'm very hesitant about this, but I'll take one or two that you recommend, Dr. Whatley, what would you say those two are?
Ooh, I would pick vitamin D.
Okay.
I think it's a big one. And if I had to, probably the magnesium glycinate.
Okay. Yeah.
Caveats aside, okay, you're forcing me to only pick two.
I know,
okay?
this is hard, right?
But if they're also a client of yours and you had to pick two, you could pick two other ones.
That's
and
true.
Then...
They could have like four. Okay, so I have to kind of go back to, see, this is tough because I have to kind of reiterate what you said. But omegas are really, really important and kind of essential supplement, especially for reducing inflammation. And then, yeah, I would go for glutamine. Right, so those four would be kind of an essential starting. If I had to give a client a starting kit, I would give them those four. And guess what? We do, and those are the four we give them.
Oh my gosh, amazing.
Actually, there's one more that we give them, and that's protein as a supplement, right? So having like a good protein as a supplement can be helpful. Like a protein powder can be really, really
absolutely
beneficial.
And the important thing for anyone is to make sure that you're working with someone knowledgeable when it comes to supplements. We do have a lot of information. We have podcasts like this one or other social media information, but don't just take that because someone else says that it works for them. Have a conversation with someone that you trust, whether it's your trainer or your doctor or someone else who understands, so they can help you pare that down. I don't know if I want to take 6 things, but what are the 2 things that are really going to be best? And if you're really not sure, get some blood testing. See if you're truly deficient in something and what is going to be most beneficial for you at that stage.
I love that. Okay, so there you have it. A little summary on supplements, why they're helpful, how to take them. If you want to know more about a specific supplement that can benefit you, definitely put that in the comments below, and Dr. Whatley or myself will answer that question on a future episode. Until then, make sure to like and subscribe so you get future episodes of the Strong and Healthy After 40 podcast.